This week has been the longest month ever. That's what it feels like. This it's literally been a week. He just stepped down was it last Sunday?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He stepped down last Sunday, but um, it's been interesting to watch the tide kind of turn
Mm-hmm.
because first, so many political pundits said, Kamala would be a disaster. She would have no chance. It'll be the worst move ever for the Democrats to put her up. And now I'm wondering how much of that was really based on data and how much of that was based on we just don't think a black woman could do it. You know what I mean? Like because it was like really even a lot of like black pundits were saying the same thing. Like they were like, there's no way it'll be a disaster with this generation of 18 to 34 voters, they're not going for talking about women in that
Mm-hmm.
manner.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going for that. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And so it's a different time than it was when he was saying all that wild stuff about Hillary. That stuff now is not gonna play the same way it did 8 years ago, right? The
Mm-hmm.
stuff that super sexist, super misogynistic stuff, it don't play the same. It's not playing to the same audience the way that it did those years ago. So, like I said, you had like a huge uptick in young voters registering as Democrats who are coming out to specifically try to take that guy down. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people who weren't even politically engaged and don't care, but they also felt like, well, just to say, it's two old white men. I don't care either way. But
Mm-hmm.
now they feel like they see something that could be really progressive. They're like, okay, I can get on board with that, even if I don't agree with all of her. Because what I've been seeing is a lot of people like, even if I don't agree with all of her policies, I can get on board with most of what she's talking about, especially to be.
Let's embark on the Ark Republic to hear current news that's published. More than gossip and chatter, covering current affairs that matter. We talk issues with professional views, all keeping you in queue. We wanted a higher vibe for these days and times to free the voices and minds. Reporting the sign of the times so all can build. Let's shine, yeah.
Greetings wherever you are situated in the world. What up, y'all? My name is Kaya Nyambi Shivers, and you are tuning in to Ark Republic News Podcast, where we talk about all news that matters. And we are here again with our dope, uncouth radio, political course and cultural correspondent, Dame Crawford. What up, Dame?
What's going on? Good to be back. Lovely to be here.
All right, thank you. Let's get into the shits. and
Yeah,
that
let's do it.
it. Okay.
Let's do it.
Let
Let's do it.
us get into it. And this is this very wild political election cycle that's going on. We are under 100 days. What we talked about is that Joe Biden has stepped down. Kamala Harris has entered in, is now the presumptive presidential candidate. There's been a lot of activity. It's not even 2 weeks since her announcement. And so, what are your initial thoughts on what's going on in the campaign?
This week has been the longest month ever. That's what it feels like. This It's literally been a week. He just stepped down was it last Sunday?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He stepped down last Sunday, but um, it's been interesting to watch the tide kind of turn
Mm-hmm.
because first, so many political pundits said, Kamala would be a disaster. She would have no chance. It'll be the worst move ever for the Democrats to put her up. And now I'm wondering how much of that was really based on data and how much of that was based on we just don't think a black woman could do it. You know what I mean? Like because it was like really even a lot of like black pundits were saying the same thing. Like they were like, there's no way it'll be a disaster. But I don't think anybody saw this kind of energy that she's bringing. I don't think any of us saw that coming, to be honest. Like,
Mm-hmm.
um,
And let
it's
me
been
add, just add something to that. And they also were saying that she made a weak vice president candidate for Biden as well.
yeah,
That was also something that they said, that in Biden's state that she could not kind of like hold him up, and people be like, well, at least you had Kamala,
yeah,
as the second in
which
command.
is crazy to blame her for that. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, which is kind of crazy, but we know how that goes, right?
Right.
We
Right.
know how that goes. But and I agree. But me, you talked about this too. Some of that was because the Biden administration put baby in a corner. They hid her away for a
Mhm.
lot. They didn't let her do a lot. I don't think they wanted her to outshine Biden. I didn't think they wanted her to help the talks that ended up happening anyway.
Mhm.
If she would have been out there speaking the way she is now, she would have been as dynamic. Because before this, I didn't think she was this dynamic, just to be honest. And as
Mhm.
dynamic as I've been seeing her, I'm like, oh, she couldn't do this while Biden was in the kind of slow slump state that he was in, because it would have probably accelerated those conversations of like, maybe she should be number one and not him. So since she's become number one on the ticket, her favorability has jumped up like 6 points. A lot of those swing states that they said were like out of reach are now like within 1 point in all the polling. And this is just 1 week with her. They said she had the highest week of fundraising ever, not like ever.
Yeah.
The biggest 1 week of fundraising ever. And you and I know how much fundraising actually means to a campaign. So that shows you how big her impact has been already, just moving up the ticket. And then like some of those swing states, like I said, that it looked like Biden was going to lose by like a landslide, and why Trump thought he had it in the bag. They said a lot of those are coming within between 1 and 2 points, because I guess I don't know if you heard the term, they said there were a lot of devil haters during this election cycle. Like, I hate Trump, I hate Biden, but I'm gonna hold my nose and vote for Trump, or I'm gonna hold my nose and vote for Biden.
Mhm.
So they said a lot of those double haters are kind of going to her side. And then
Mhm.
she had I think 47,000 volunteers sign up, and they were women. A lot of the demographic was women aged 18 to 34, which is a demographic that Trump doesn't get, and I don't think Biden was getting it either. So she's bringing in demographics that Biden couldn't bring in, that'll probably be needed, not probably, that will be needed to replace Biden's white man moderate vote, right? And
Mhm.
she needs to build these other coalitions with like younger voters, which she's doing a great job of. Like, she's on TikTok now, and she's doing a lot of, whoever is running her social media, they're doing a great job. She's doing a good job to me attacking Trump. Like, every time he says something, she's dropping a press release
Mhm.
immediately. Like, oh, last night he said we not gonna have to vote anymore. Last night he said he didn't like my laugh. That's just weird. And
She
it's
took it from
touching,
K Dot. Okay. Every time I'm gonna respond 3 times.
every nerve in Trump's body, because he literally tweeted, "I'm not weird," like a little kid. Like, when she said that, he's just being weird, he tweeted, "I'm not weird. DJT out." I'm like, this is crazy.
Mhm.
But it shows that it's working, and he's running from the debate. So all that macho machismo, he's losing some of that. He's losing some of that shine. And
Well,
we've seen.
can I say,
Go
can
ahead.
I interject? So I wanted to kind of a little bit what I see. What we know is that Biden's very stubborn. Biden is a very like patriarchal type of guy. What I saw in the Biden Harris administration was he presented himself as like Big Papa to
Mhm.
Harris. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? And like, and he has ego. He has a lot of ego that's very evident,
very apparent.
which shadowed or was he's the president. So you are going to be the top figure. Now, since Harris has stepped up, they said, "Oh, well, the critique was with Harris before she became the presidential. She's the presidential candidate this go round because she did attempt to do it. Is that a lot of people said, well, we didn't know Harris. Now we know her a little bit more. She's very interesting to us. They say, oh, well, as a vice president, you're supposed to take a seat back, and it's usually the president thing. But I recall in the Obama Biden presidency, even though Obama was such a huge figure, Biden actually had, I think, a more visible place because he was supposed to be the Democrat that talked to the more maybe conservative Democrats or played this role, right? He had a very clear role. I don't know if Kamala had a clear role. Sorry, Kamala had a clear role. Look, okay, her mama called. Okay, so we called her Kamala. We gonna call her, but Kamala had a clear role. So I wanted to say that, but you mentioned something. You said masculine, and I wanted to earmark that. When it was the Biden versus Trump thing, it was going to be this war of masculinities, you know?
Mhm.
And so because you had an aging person, they didn't have the bravado or had the energy to show the bravado. And then you have Trump, who's around the same age, that shows that he still got it. Now this narrative has changed, and I have not seen clearly where the Republican Party has had a successful response to a Harris ticket. And this is what we're talking about. And in my opinion, in a post, destruction of the Roe v. Wade legislation, you don't have a good response, right? These women are hot on your ass.
Yeah.
And she's using that energy. And I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, no, and she's smart to use that energy, right? So there are certain things that she needs to lean in on, because those are the things that are going to help build that coalition that's going to replace that Biden white conservative Democrat or moderate voter, right? That she's probably going to lose. So, like I said, you do that with those younger women, you do that with the younger men, even who are a little more, progressive. She got to get a lot of more, of the progressive young Democrats who I think are like a majority of the volunteers that signed up for her and who's been canvassing for her. She has to lean into that. And then she has the advantage that a lot of people don't have of coming on right before the election and being able to have a clean slate. And what I mean by that is she can pick and choose the things that she wants to connect with that was in the Biden administration. And then she can also pick and choose the things that she wants to distance herself from. She's in a very unique place where she can be like, oh, I rocked with him on the economy and I rocked with him on this, but I felt like I should have been able to do a little more when it comes to immigration and the border. Like now she gets to make her own narrative, right? Of like, well, I wasn't the president, so these are the things that I can do. I feel a little different about Israel and Palestine than Joe Biden does, because I think that is going to be a big part. Like the way she handles the Israel Palestine thing is going to be a big part, because that is one of the single voter topics that the young voters are most interested in.
Right. That is definitely a hotbed topic. I believe that her not meeting with Netanyahu, or at the very least, I don't know, there's a lot of private meetings that go on, but
Yeah,
publicly facing, she didn't engage Netanyahu, was a very clear sign of her attempting to look like she sides with those of the 1834 demographic who have shown heavy criticisms of how the Biden administration has responded to the Gaza, the situation that's going on in Gaza. I don't think she has a clean slate. I don't think she's entering in with a clean slate.
I'm not saying she has a clean slate, but I'm saying she has an advantage that most candidates at this time don't get, to where even though she's on the ticket with Biden, now she can pick and choose what she wants to distance herself from, and she can pick and choose the things that she wants to lean into. That's the better way to articulate it.
Okay. But I do believe this, or maybe it's not necessarily belief. I see that this goes back to what you were saying, is taking advantage of this social media generation where things are quick, fast. By the time people got to the Hillary Clinton, Trump at the end, everybody was so damn exhausted. And I think, that was one of the reasons why people slept on it. I mean, all of the mudslinging by that point had come to a head a couple of times. So at the end of that, there might have been some level of exhaustion that we will not see because it's so short of a time, but that engages those social media voters, those TikTok, IG, who could keep an attention span, but for so long. And I think she's playing on that. And she's on TikTok, right? Yep. When the U.S. government is like, TikTok is not a good thing. TikTok is it is right. That Chinese are using it to capture all this data for the AI. And she's like, well, I'm about this TikTok life. I thought that was a really interesting move, right?
Very, very interesting. But that goes again back to my point too, right? Because it's a way for her to say without saying, well, I didn't agree with that. see, I'm on TikTok, youngsters. You know what I mean? Like, even if she's changed her position or she's lying because, you know, like, or she's pandering, whatever.
We
The thing is, it's a way for her to show that she can distance herself from some of the things that Joe Biden was like the face of, and some of the
Mhm,
things that he was
mhm,
doing, and some
mhm.
of the things that people were trying to say, well, you know, she was supporting this. Well, now she can say, well, I was just backing my president, but this is the way I would do it.
Mhm,
And I
mhm.
think that's, you know, it's going to be very integral to the way she runs her campaign moving forward, showing her vision of America while not throwing, like, because I know her whole thing is to show her vision while not throwing
But
Joe
throwing them
Biden
under
under
the
the
bus.
bus.
Right. But clearly, as we said offline, she has been in the gym doing her 100 push-ups a day, drinking her water and getting prepared for this moment. Trust, best, and believe she was sitting back, strategizing. This
Well,
is something that doesn't come out of the air. She
no,
been ready, which is evident in how she came out so strong. Her speeches have been way stronger. Before, she's presenting as a very focused. She knows the policy she wants to tackle, the things she wants to address. People are like, what Kamala is this?
she's
Right?
running a very different campaign than she did the last time she was running for president when
Mm-hmm.
she was in the primaries. This is a very different campaign. And as you know, I sent some clips to you and I said, let me know if I'm tripping. But is her charisma like on a different level? Is her speaking much better? Is her hitting her points? Like, it feels like she was trying to figure out who she was as candidate Harris back then.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like she's matured in who she is as a candidate now, and she
Mm-hmm.
knows what she wants to say. She knows how she wants to say it. One of the things me and you talked about was like how you was like, I hope she can figure out how to lean into who her personality is, where it doesn't look and feel fake. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we're getting more of the authentic her this time than the front facing thing she tried to give us the first time, that it didn't connect, right? Because it wasn't real. I feel like we're getting a lot of the real her now, and it feel like it's connecting because, like, she's not trying to change her laugh. Donald Trump said her laugh is weird. She leaning into it, using it in her social media. You know what I mean? Like, telling him he's weird for talking about her laugh. Like, these things and the way she's speaking, like you said, it don't feel like she's doing a sister girl thing no more. It
Mm-hmm.
feels like she's doing what she needs to do, and her just being her is reaching those people she thought she needed to speak to a certain way in
What
order to.
which is important because that's why people in Trump's first run gravitated towards him, because of this notion of, well, all right, he may not be up on all the issues, he may not have presidential experience or electoral representation experience, but he comes off as way more authentic, believable than a Hillary Clinton. And it's very interesting because it seems as if Trump is trying to present this statesmanly type of persona, and it's not sticking.
No,
I
no,
thought
it's
that
not.
that's really interesting. Like, you're trying to be more stoic, but that wasn't what brought you or led you to this. People, because you were supposed to be anti-establishment, and now you're being very trying to sound like establishment, to the point that, from what I understand, people falling asleep in your speeches, right?
Yeah.
You're not electrifying anymore.
No, no. I think, well, one, from looking at his last couple of speeches, I really think he's spiraling because he doesn't know how to attack Vice President Harris without being racist or misogynistic. So that makes him tiptoe. Because usually he's off the head, he gonna say some funny shit, but he don't know how to do that with her,
Mhm.
right? Because first he tried laughing Kamala, then he tried lying Kamala. Now he's like, she's the
Do
top
that and
cop.
do that again. Laughing.
Laughing Kamala. They call her Kamala. I don't care. I don't say her name. He literally said that. I don't know. I don't care how to say her name. So he's trying to, like, it's like watching a comedian. You know how we used to go to the Regency West on Crenshaw back in the
Yeah.
day,
Yes.
and you see comics in there figuring out their jokes with their
Their
little notepads.
material.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what these last few rallies have felt like watching. Because, I try to, like, me, I try to watch both sides. I try to watch his
Mhm.
rallies. I try to watch her speeches just to see what's going on, right? I'm watching his last few. I'm like, my man talking about Hannibal Lecter again. I don't know. Like, he's talking about Hannibal Lecter, almost like as if it's a real person. He's talking about his golf swing. He's talking about uh challenging Joe Biden. It's like he can't let Joe Biden go. He missed Joe Biden, you know, because that was his landslide when that was too easy for him. He was even still like, where's Hunter Biden? Where's Hunter? I'm like, why are you still talking about Hunter? Biden is not, you know what I'm saying? So he
Hunter in the
really,
rehab. He's somewhere
yeah,
trying to get it together.
right. Like, but he really can't figure out like what's the angle, because you know, he see the angle that his vice president took, and even the angle his vice president, it's like you're pushing more women to VP Harris's side, you know, by doing that. Like literally, they said the head of the Republicans had to start calling everybody like, yo, y'all gotta stop being racist, which is to me crazy in itself. The fact that you have to call your lawmakers and tell them, yo, y'all gotta stop being racist when it comes to talking about, you know, VP Harris. They gotta stop being racist and so sexist. But they can't help it because that's who they are. That's what that party really is. You know what I mean? And
The grand
so
old party, the
the grand
GOP.
old party, yeah,
Right.
yeah. So they are really struggling, trying to find ways to attack her, trying to give Donald Trump ways to attack her, and Donald's struggling to pin that thing on her that he can work on, you know, Crooked Hillary, that he found that word, you know, Sleepy Joe. He found that he's trying to find that thing for VP Harris, and he can't find it right now.
Right. I think he's even called her a bum
Yeah, he
too.
did. He tried to
You
call,
know,
and I'm like, and everybody like, that's not gonna work, especially again with this generation of 18 to 34 voters, you know, they not going for talking about women in that manner. You know, they're not going for that. You know what I mean? It's and so it's a different time than it was when he was saying all that wild stuff about Hillary. That stuff now is not gonna play the same way it did 8 years ago, right? The stuff that super sexist, super misogynistic stuff, it don't play the same. It's not playing to the same audience the way that it did those years ago. So, like I said, you had like a huge uptick in young voters registering as Democrats who are coming out to specifically try to take that guy down. A lot of people who weren't even politically engaged and don't care, but they also felt like, you know, well, just to say, you know, it's two old white men, I don't care either way. But now they feel like they see something that could be really progressive. They're like, okay, I can get on board with that, even if I don't agree with all of her. Because what I've been seeing is a lot of people like, even if I don't agree with all of her policies, I can get on board with most of what she's talking about, especially to beat Donald
Well,
Trump.
I mean, even if you are a voter who wants to have some type of substantive engagement in what the next 4 years would look like in terms of policy, or looking at the global landscape, or, you know, talking about gender rights and equality, I think a really good for me when I saw this is a great analogy what you're talking about. So I'm a media studies professor, and I taught a class, and I was trying to get the class to understand how In Living Color
Mm,
changed the NFL halftime
hmm.
show,
Yes, it
right?
did.
And I
Yes,
told them, you know what? This was about, I want to say about 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And you know what? It wasn't even, was it a media class? I think it was, I forgot. So I said, you know what? Let me show you what the halftime show was that changed the In Living Color that changed the halftime show. When I played it, I wanted to climb under a desk, walk off a cliff, or walk off the thing. It was so misogynistic. The students were mortified by the offensive jokes. They in this is a whole new energy here. You cannot do that even with conservative I would say younger voters too. So I wanted to talk about that, but I also, we said in the pre-show, we wanted to talk about surprises of the Kamala ticket that you saw.
yes.
And what are these surprises that you saw this week? Because you were damn sure texting me about them all week.
Listen. I felt like I was out the game, and every time I think I'm out, they pull me back.
I gotta
But
stay up 30 more minutes. I know, and I
right,
can't afford to, but yeah.
right. But you know, the biggest surprise was first, right? So the first surprise, I wasn't surprised by the Black Women's Call, where the Black women had over 60, 70,000 Black women, and they raised $2 million in one night. And I think it ended up being, was it 4 or 5 million by the end of it all? Like,
I
or
don't
something like,
know. Okay. Yeah,
but
I think so. I think four, I want to say, but
yeah,
okay.
but so that didn't surprise me. But the first surprise for me was the next night when they had the Black men's. Zoom call for Kamala Harris. And it
From what I
was,
understand, was organized by Roland Martin. And if it was, kudos.
yeah, it was. It was organized by Roland Martin, Bakari Sellers, and I'm sorry, the other guy, I'm tripping on his name, was a pastor. But
You were on the call.
I went on the call. I went on the call because I was interested to see what the conversation would be like
Right.
with black men around, VP Harris as because what I thought I was gonna see was a whole bunch of negativity, a whole bunch of she locked us up. But that's not what I saw. I saw a whole bunch of like, we got to get behind her. My wife, this is the one that not surprised me, but what I saw, the comment I saw the most that I thought was dope. They were like, my wife and my daughters are behind her, and I have to get behind her with my wife and my daughters, and we have to protect all the black women because of all the shit that's about to come. I was like, oh, that's interesting. You know what I mean? Because we know that in a lot of black households, it's a little different than white households in regards to like who follows who in certain instances. And a lot of political households, the men follow the women. And like honestly, because we come from a more matriarchal society. Our grandmamas run everything.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Granddaddy, listen to grandma. If granddaddy want to put it down, he will. If granddaddy say we ain't doing it, we ain't doing it. But for the most part, granddaddy defers to grandmama.
Oh, grandmama take granddaddy in that back room, be like, listen here.
Listen.
Listen.
You see what I'm saying? So we come from that side of it, right? So it looks a little different for our households. So I thought that was interesting. And then just the men speaking and the things that men were saying, I thought it was dope. And then the men end up raising $2.5 million that night. And I don't know how much it ended up being. And I think they're going to do another call. But the biggest surprise was white women for Kamala Harris.
And I was nosy. I was all in the shit.
Did you go in it? Did you go in it?
I surely did.
When I say they are fed up with Donald Trump, you know what I'm saying? And I said, I did not see this coming. And I think they raised like something like 7 million that night.
Yeah, it's like 8. I think they raised
8 million.
like 8.
They were 8 million in the night.
Right.
And I said, oh.
But you know what this, let me just say the side note. These calls with the subsequent money raising is probably comparable to the wealth gaps that we see. So I wasn't surprised that white women raised more than black women and black men, right?
Right.
But there were more people. Now, in defense, there was like 130,000 women on the call for the white women for Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris. So, but I thought that was we could see how that infrastructure plays out. But I was on the call. I was probably on the call for about 30 minutes listening to what people were hooting and hollering and screaming and all type of stuff. They were and they were saying things like it was tickling, but it was sad at the same time that I tuned in on the part where how do you support this presidency and supporting Black folk or people of color who are supporting it. These are the things that you need to do. Don't be dismissive. Like it was like very.
Oh, they had to have that conversation.
Oh, they did have to have that conversation because what we all know is that you have well-meaning people who think that they're progressive. They really have a lot of ways to go in understanding what it's like to be in full allyship. And they are scared or they might think that they're so deep in it that they know how to interact with Black folk and Native Black folk, and they just do some offensive shit, So they were really like, okay, this is what you need to do, blah, blah, blah. So I was tickled, when I was watching it. It's like, step 1, don't say the N-word. No, they didn't say that. But
yeah,
right.
They
were like, step. So I thought that was really very encouraging. I would say that when we talk about getting behind Kamala, yes. Is it? Yeah, Kamala is one, I think, facet that needs to be increased is you must support your Black media and media, independent media,
Yes.
and covering these elections, because we are not receiving the advertisement dollars or the resources necessary in order to adequately cover. If this person is the presidency of choice, we should not all every morning have to defer to AP News, CNN, MSNBC, and a Fox in order to get some of this important information. So there are a lot of news agencies that are struggling and want to cover this election cycle. So some of those dollars or pressure, or if you're influential, need to be ensured that they go to Black media and other independent sources that are covering it, whatever it is. And be
What I
conservative.
will say, what I will say that was smart was with Roland's call, they did say they're going to
Of
be
course.
allotting
They
some
say
of
that
that
with
money.
they did say that with the Black women. They
That
did
they're
say
going to
that
be
too.
allotted for their media and a couple of other
But
places to
we
get to
know in
give.
the Black, but this is the problem. I'm talking about the Black media maker. What happens is that money doesn't trickle down to all Black media. It's like
100%.
what they call legacy papers, or there will be certain people who or like a Roland Martin who is in the room and is afforded this access, thus gets, or a what's his dude, Byron Allen. They'll get
Byron
the
Allen.
lion's share of the resources, and there are a lot of good media entities outside of that small bubble, hence Arc Republic, that's doing real good work, right? So
Right.
I mean,
Right.
I wanted to add that. I'm sorry. And then you said that there were white dudes. That was a new one.
So this week there's supposed to be white dudes for VP Harris. And I think they said 77,000 were registered so far for that call.
Wow.
So these are things that I'm seeing that makes me feel like she's a much more viable candidate than we thought, and she might really have a shot to kick Trump's ass. Not just win, she might have a shot to kick his ass.
Well, for me, it was the one you also told me about, the golf cart, the golf cart village in Florida.
The golf cart village in Florida is like Trump town, and there's videos. Even there was a specific video that Trump had tweeted that he deleted, where there was a bunch of them on Trump golf cart saying "white power." Yeah. So it's that kind of place, and there were a ton of VP Harris golf carts, and they did the same thing for her, and everybody who was there was saying we never thought we would see something like this in this area, because it's Trump town, and that part of Florida is so specifically heavily concentrated. And somebody made a good point. They said not only was it dope that they did that, it was brave that they did that, knowing the backlash they're probably going to get from their Trumpsters that are in the area, the ones that are yelling white power, right? So they said to do that, like it was a big deal on a lot of levels. So those things right there, and seeing that, I think one of her events, I want to say it was the event in Indianapolis, they had to change the venue because way more people showed up than they thought. So at the last minute, they had to change to a bigger venue for her. So things like that have surprised me. And like I said, one of the biggest surprises is VP Harris herself. Just the way she's been moving, the way she's been carrying herself, the way she's been taking Trump's attacks and turning them around on her. Like when she was like, "Oh, I thought you said anytime, any place," when you said you want to do the debate. Now you're trying to back out. Like she's like answering him directly when he says some wild stuff. And I think that's very smart because, like you said, it's going specifically up against that macho machismo thing, and showing that she's not afraid of it, showing that she's not going to back down, and showing that she's not going to skirt around what he says or even skirt around the issues. So that's what I see from the surprises.
So I want to kind of flip the script, add another dimension to this conversation, because if you have been following Arc Republic, everybody knows that I look at politics with a whole other eye. Oh, I don't want to be seen like I'm Illuminati, but because I'm not, but I look at it with both eyes, right? So I think this is very important. So there's a lot, what we're seeing, well, let me say this, we're seeing a lot of outward support in this growing swell towards Kamala that's happening. But don't be fooled, because that's what happened with Hillary Clinton. There was all of this support, but when it came down to the get down, it was something else. So there was a very interesting quote. It said that even though Harris is not Biden, uh, um, Harris is not Trump, there still is going to be it's not, she doesn't have the ticket. I mean, she doesn't have the presidency in her pocket. There still is a battle. I mean, because
Oh no, it's going to be an uphill battle for sure.
right.
And you know, not to cut you off, but she's being very smart by owning that. She's calling herself the underdog in every
Mm-hmm,
speech, and she
mm-hmm,
keeps saying, "We the underdogs, we got to win." So
mm-hmm.
yeah, I just want to say that. Go ahead.
Okay. So with that being said, I'm glad you said that. How do we, because I'm listening to the channels and I also have my own ideas, because I'm not the type of voter, or you know I don't engage in public discourse, or I try not to. I try to kind of sit back and look at multiple different angles. But even if you do support Harris, how do we have nuanced conversations about her presidency, regardless if we support her or not? Because one of the turnoffs for me, and even for other people, is that it's like this kind of like, very narrow in terms of it has to be Harris. And if you're not on Harris, you not shit. And if you don't, like you don't want to vote, you don't feel like you're voting, shut up. Instead, that is to me antiquated
Well,
as
yeah, I feel
well.
like
So
that.
how do we have these conversations? Yeah.
Well, that's not the way to have a conversation, first of all. And I'm gonna tell my people something that I've been telling all my folks privately. Stop fighting in the comments.
Mm-hmm.
If there's somebody that you respect, somebody you really want to talk to, and you want to have something to say about this election, hit them in the inbox. Because what happens is when y'all in the comments, people feel like they showing out,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff turns into an argument really quickly. And like, so I had a friend of mine who's, a dude that we have conversations about everything over the years, and he was on a post, saying the same talking points that we've been hearing about her locking up thousands of black men and this and that and the other. So I just hit him in the inbox. I said, "Hey, bro, you have a platform, and I think a lot of people listen to you. Can I just share some information with you, and then you can make your own decision? I'm not trying to tell you who to vote for. I just want you to have the correct information when you're having these conversations." And he was like, "Oh, for sure." And he said, "I appreciate you saying that, and I appreciate you coming to the inbox." Because it takes the ego out of it, right? It takes the
Mm-hmm.
having the.
Mm-hmm.
So I sent him the information. He was like, "Damn, thanks for this. I didn't know." I said, "I was the same as you. I used to say the same things. I used to believe all the same things." I said, until I went and looked into it for myself. And I said, this was back when she was running for president, and was it 2019 when she was in the primaries, the 2019 primary.
Mm-hmm.
I said, there are criticisms to be had. I said, but it's hard to talk about those criticisms when you're up against people making false points, making points that aren't true,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's the thing, the conversation that I've been having. I'm like, she's not a perfect candidate by far. There are things to criticize in her policy. There's things to criticize about her at the border. There's things to criticize about, the administration's handling of Israel Palestine. There's things to really discuss in a nuanced manner, but it's hard to have a discussion if we're actually talking about stuff that's not true.
Right,
So
right. That's a
like,
good point. That's a good point. I want from your from your perspective, and could you stay in the frame, because your
oh,
high top keeps
oh, you're
going in
getting
and
cut
out.
out.
You keep
Yeah.
going board, high top, board, high top.
It's my own special effects.
Yeah, it's like some matrix. So,
Right.
why is it? I think another thing for you, why is it important to have? I have a thing why we need to have nuanced conversations, but why is it important for you to have nuanced conversations?
It's important for me because I don't want us to be low educated voters, because those are the ones who once slip through the cracks, and those are the ones who will fall for anything. And I say that not talking about just a presidential election. I'm talking about on a local level.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like the more engaged we are and the more we know about all facets of civics, it will help us to make decisions about our community. It'll help us to make decisions about who we voting for when it comes to the folks in our city. It'll help us to make decisions when we talking about how things actually work and where the funds come from for our schools, and where so I think it's important to have those nuanced conversations, so we can have nuanced conversations about the big picture.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I think it's important that we try to educate each other instead of just fussing at each other and just trying to you need to vote for who I say you need. You know what? I feel like that's not the approach to take. I feel like, let me give you this information on both candidates, and you can make your own educated decision.
Mhm.
Because one, I think that gives more respect to the voters, and I think that tends to soften the conversation in regards to, like you saying, like, oh, if you don't vote for Kamala, you this. No, it shouldn't be that. It should be, I respect you enough to make your own decision. So I'm going to give you this information about VP Harris, the good and the bad, the pros and the cons, and I'm going to give you this information about Trump, the pros and the cons, and I'm going to give you this information about Project 25, and you make your own decision. But I think in order to make the correct decision, I think you should know all of these things and you should know all these pieces, because it's very important parts of the puzzle.
You make some really good points. I believe that not only this can make people a more informed voter, but a more informed citizen, right? I think that is really important. When you are a more informed citizen, you feel like you have more investment in how you exist in this society on a federal level, but definitely on a local level. I think more nuanced conversations, like you said, I 100% agree that it brings out more dialogue about what is going on in the civic arena in your community, right? In your neighborhood, in your state, in your city. Local elections are critical. And what we said, you can have, there are pockets in this country where it's heavily Democratic in a red state, and these people are protected, in these pockets that represent their interests. But also, I think it will also bring a more mature voter. I think the last kind of like 4 election cycles, or 4 election cycles, what we saw was a lot of, it got to more like a Bloods and Crips.
Yeah, no, for real. Yeah.
And people weren't kind of sitting back and looking at a fuller picture about what happens. On the other side, whoever is the president, you still have to engage.
Yeah.
And so you can't just tap out. We cannot afford to tap out. I think that's what it is. We can no longer afford to tap out of the political engagement. However it is you engage, you must engage. And I think for me, overall, whatever it is you do in this political cycle, I still live down the street from you. You still my cousin. We still got to talk. I think a lot of people are defining how people are voting are in these very rigid ways that is not how things pan out. Even if people have, like I said, I had a uncle who was a Republican until he died. I love Uncle Don. That man could drink a bottle of Hennessy like nobody else business. And also I want to say, even though it's not a robust representation, there is a representation of Black Republicans in our community that we must engage. We have conservative Black family members, especially if you have those devout Christian folk that will listen to a Joel Olson, whatever, have these very conservative views. And they are part of our ecosystem that we have to bring in. And then there are people who are staunch Democrats that will not bang with Harris. It is what it is.
Absolutely.
And might have very valid points. Or they might not have points that you agree with, but you still must engage with them. And I think that that's important, and it can't be missed, because from what on the presidential campaigns and major elections can be very bloody. And they have been these last 4. I remember when Obama got elected. I'm not lying. This is a true story. The first time Obama got elected, I was teaching in Ewing, New Jersey.
Okay.
At this college in a white suburb of Trenton. Trenton is very Black, but the suburb is very white. And a white student came in to the classroom and had a full whole meltdown because Obama won and told the class that we are all going to hell because we elected like the devil. And had a full, now, South Central Compton, Kaya, would be a whole nother thing, but I forgot exactly what I told her. And ironically, like a year later, she was in my Africana women's class. She apologized. I don't know what happened to her, but I mean, like how that evolution, I don't know where she is. She might've went back conservative, whatever it is, but elections are bloody. A lot can happen. And we also must think about, and the elections are periodical. So it happens
Yeah.
and then we move on, right?
Yeah.
So we got to keep all of that into context when we're thinking. I know I was long-winded. I like to give you the floor because I like to hear your thoughts. I thought that was important in saying this, because these conversations in the Black community have been very binary. It's either you get with us or you don't. If you get
Right.
with us, cool. If you don't, you stupid, go to hell, get on. And I'm like, I'm not.
Well, you know, I don't, and I don't think that's the way to go, right? And I used to be like that at times too, and I had to adjust my own, you know, my own view of elections, my own view of politics. But one thing I've learned is sometimes if somebody feels like their wallets aren't being directly helped,
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what the economy numbers say. I don't care if they're talking about stock market hit record highs, and we don't care about that. What we care about is our groceries are high. Chicken wings are $10. You know, it costs the same amount to go to Kentucky as it does to cook these days. Like, those are the things that we care about. And I think, you know, to your point, when I talk about things that are, to me, valid criticisms, I think when people would talk to Joe Biden about the economy and how they feel like it's not good, he would get defensive. And
Mm-hmm.
he would say, well, look at the numbers and da 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 da. I think VP Harris has to go another way. She has to say the economy is great, but I feel like our low income families aren't being helped enough by where the economy is right now.
Because you can't do that middle class talk anymore.
No,
It can't
no,
be like,
no.
and we're going to save the middle class. And the wealth gap has gotten extreme.
Yeah. So she has to. That's one of the things I think she has to adjust. Again, when we were talking about things she could take from, you know, and highlight from the Biden administration. Yeah, you can highlight the economy, but you also need to talk about how still it's not enough.
Right.
Because there's nothing wrong with saying it. There's nothing wrong with saying, like, look, the economy is not bad as y'all saying it is, but also it is not enough. We do need to do better.
Because this has been something that has percolating for a minute. I know definitely we were talking about this during the first Obama administration, right? That had the housing crisis, because this is when it's starting. And there is something, and they talk about, it's called the professional working poor. There are people who have jobs that you would think they got it. I mean, not got it in terms of their
Well, they
like
should. Yeah.
fallen, but
Yeah,
they
but they should.
should be
Yeah.
financially okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they are check to check. They're struggling. They are taking Uber, getting side gigs in order to subsist. You know, and so speaking to this so-called middle class is not going to be it's not going to be effective, because there are people who are in white collar positions who are struggling. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And I'm
Right.
not just talking about just teachers. I mean, there are doctors who are
Yeah.
struggling,
Oh, I know. I know a few personally.
lawyers
Yeah.
who got OnlyFans pages. Okay.
No, that's real. So that's why I say I think when you talk about the economy, you talk about certain things, I think you have to be a little more inclusive of the people that those parts of the economy aren't hitting and aren't trickling down, because those are a lot of the voters who feel like they've been let down by this administration. They like, oh, well, y'all talking about the economy good, but I'm still broke. I'm still living check by check. I'm making all this money and I'm barely making it. Inflation is still crazy. You have to speak to those things directly and full throated, and have to really, you know, like I said, be a little more inclusive and a little less defensive. I hope that's something that she takes with her into her campaign.
Which goes to another point. What I've been seeing, and I actually saw this, there's another commentator, and it was a piece of Harris when she was, I don't think she was a senator, but it was definitely she was serving, or she was trying to do something in California, and she was talking about how there needs to be a better criminal justice system. There needs to be better policing, XYZ. And in it, it said, stop gaslighting when you say Harris locked up Black men. And I'm like, wait a minute. Now, this might be rudimentary, but the last time I knew a cop locked up people, I don't
Right.
care what color that cop was, a cop put some people in jail. So if you are the prosecutor and you are the top cop in California,
You would put some black people in jail.
you not only did you put some black people in jail, but as we know that the social justice, the criminal justice system puts a lot of black people in jail because it disproportionately puts black people in jail and brown people in jail because of the racism in the social justice system. Now, because we all know that the criminal justice system. Now, we all know that the educational system is there's a lot of disparities in the educational system. I, as a professor, have failed black students. Does that, that is, I have that on record. Did I want to?
So does that mean that you're not for black people because you have to fail some black people?
Right. And I think you are gaslighting when you try to wrap this narrative around that there were not numbers of black and brown people and vulnerable people that went to jail under Harris's watch. Like, get out of here with that. Like, don't even come over here with that. And as somebody from California that knows my first break was talking about the prison system when I was a journalist in California.
Oh, really?
Yes. And what's this guy's name? He was in the Audrey Darden. You remember Darden? He was
of course.
Yes, he was on the prosecution. Yeah. Was it Darden that called me or the cousin? One of Darden's people was in jail and getting woe out.
Chris Darden.
Chris Darden, yes, because there were a lot of race riots that went in. But there's a lot of issues and ailments that creates in California this justice system, like, the foster care system. So we could go on and on about that, but I think it's very detrimental in robust political discourse to attempt to just throw that out when real families are still impacted by the criminal justice system in California specifically, right? Mm-hmm. So don't go there. But you said something about Tulsi Gabbard that was very interesting.
Yeah, Tulsi Gabbard was the one who took the arresting black man for marijuana, because if you notice, that's always just specific conversation. Mm-hmm. Thousands of black men going to jail for marijuana. That's what you hear all the time as a big critique on VP Harris. Tulsi Gabbard was the one who took that from rumor mill to national when they were in the primaries, and she said something about, you arrested thousands of black men for marijuana and you laughed about it when somebody asked if you ever smoked weed. So she conflated a couple of things, but it worked because now that has been a pervasive critique of her since that debate, right? So, again, back to what I was saying about having nuanced conversations, like, there's plenty of videos out there I'm sure you guys have seen that breaks down the numbers of people who were arrested for marijuana under her, the programs they went through under her. Like, all of that is readily available. So if you can get a chance, go look at it and go find it. But that just shows you how a narrative can stick. And, so now the thing is, well, she not for black men. So you have a lot of black men specifically who are like, I'm not voting for her because of that. But to me, on the flip side of that, I'm like, well, but you won't vote for her for that record, even though she was part of the George Floyd Policing Act, years later. But you'll vote for Donald Trump, who wants to give federal, he said specifically federal, he wants to give federal immunity to all police, which means they can't be charged for anything they do while they're police officers. So you don't think that's more dangerous than the marijuana arrest? So, it's an interesting conversation to have, but that's what I've been, hearing out in these streets.
Right. And I don't know if they voted for Biden or not, but Biden had a very clear racist history. He was put in office. I mean,
yeah.
But this is for me important. All right. So Harris is coming up and there are disproportionately high arrests in marijuana, which we all know. So Harris, on your platform, are you going to federalize marijuana, cannabis?
Right, and I know
right? I know your old boo thing, Montel Jordan would like that because he is a heavy cannabis.
Oh, well, I think because I know they changed it. Her and Biden changed it from a Schedule A drug.
Right, they reduced it. Yeah,
they reduced it.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm hoping they go take it farther.
But that's something that can be addressed on the campaign, especially cannabis, even though it is still considered an offense, a chargeable offense federally, right, is like a multi-billion-dollar industry. Like these two things existing at the same time, but we all know, the underworld feeds a lot off of this. But being that, and this is from somebody who, when I remember 420 last year, I was coming out of class and walked in Washington Square Park. So if you know anything about like New York movies, a lot of them take place in this specific park. They have a lot of filming, and there were thousands of people openly smoking weed. Right?
Yeah.
I would have never thought I would. White mostly.
Yeah. Well,
right?
and that's the thing. So that's the thing that be killing me. Like you got all these brothers that's still in jail for marijuana, and
There you
got
go.
white women on the Today Show showing you how to make cannabis brownies and stuff like that. So that's the crazy thing, and I think that's something that needs to be addressed for sure.
Right. And even the microdosing mushrooms, right?
Yeah.
So like how a certain population is deemed is trendy, and it is like the thing, and it is considered maybe spirituality, right? When you have rastas, so that is something that definitely needs to be addressed. And as a voter, even in support, you are responsible, in my opinion, to make the candidate work for your shit, to work for your vote. You know what I mean? It's like, look, you're going to get this $2 bill. You're going to get this $30 bill. What is this going to be like?
Right. Right.
Like how hard you going to work for it? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I wanted to, let's flip on Trump, because we've talked a lot about Harris campaign. Let's talk
about your boy.
Who? Trump or Vance?
Oh, let's start with Vance, because we might spend a little more time on Trump.
On Trump, okay.
So the biggest thing they say about your vice president candidate pick is supposed to be do no harm.
Mm-hmm.
They like, all we want is our VP pick to do no harm to our campaign, and
to look good, just to look good,
just look good. I don't think JD Vance got the memo. I think he's trying to out Trump. And as we all know, that does not bode well for people in Trump's orbit.
That's a really good point. Vance comes out as the superstar. One, I just want to say how rapid things are changing, because initially I was like, this is going to be I told Sharice this, the other correspondent, that this is going to be, what did I say? A campaign of the vice presidents. That has quickly moved, right? Because it was like, here you have Vance, this dynamic political figure, against Harris, which comes off as very boring, right? And beige. So now Harris has moved. She's now, Kendrick Lamar on it, maybe between Euphoria and Not Like Us. And then you have Vance, getting a lot of attention, but for all the wrong reasons. But it just seems like he's overshadowing Trump. As we all know, Trump does not like that. Trump has to be the center of attention. So I thought that was really, and like you said, I think you said something like, he goes on these, I wrote it down. It was really interesting. I think you said kind of like these MAGA meltdowns.
Yeah. And there was an interview with him and Trump together.
Your sound is off. Something happened.
Oh, hold on. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So what was interesting is, like, I saw an interview with him and Trump together, and you could see Trump being like, bro, you stepping on me. You know what I mean? Because he's trying to answer questions, and Vance is jumping in, and like he's trying to out MAGA. And I heard that Trump wanted to draw him for a ticket, but because the Republican National Convention passed already, it's too late. He's on the paperwork. He's the official nominee. He cannot get off the ticket now. So he's stuck with this guy now, who's probably going to help bring him down, because he's going after one of Trump's biggest voting blocks, which was white women. JD Vance is doing nothing but pissing off white women. Like, he's literally there to piss off white women, and all that's going to do is help VP Harris.
Right. That childless cat lady comment, it went over my head. You know what I'm saying? I'm a step parent, proudly. My guy, my son, he was like, there's no step in the parent. So we have that agreement. But I just wanted to say, so when he said that, and I'm an auntie, And
Yeah.
anybody in the Black community know that an auntie is a mama. An auntie would smack, slap, put that foot up in that gas, and also help with tuition and other things like that. So that didn't offend me at all because that didn't apply. That didn't apply.
Well, no, because it wasn't for you. That's what I said. Like he's specifically offending white women who overwhelmingly voted for Trump last time.
Right.
And that's a voting block he's gonna need.
Oh yes, and the irony is that white populations across the world are in a negative what do you call this, birth, they have negative birth rates on top of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, so you are hitting it multiple blows because I think I forgot the actress's name, said, like that backward, fu comment, like, oh well, Vance, hopefully your daughter doesn't have to go through IVF, or
Yeah.
basically saying these fertility issues that are very profound in America, but more so much longer when it
Yeah.
comes to white populations. So this thing with Vance is going to be really interesting because from what I understand is that Vance was supposed to satisfy the MAGA population and the Project 2025 population where Trump
Yes.
could not publicly say it.
100%.
Right. So it's backfiring. We'll see though, because I don't, polls, I don't trust them. We'll see how this goes. But let's get into Trump.
Yeah. I went to Trump's website to, just go through his specific platform because I kept asking people who told me they were voting for Trump, what policies do you back? Literally none of them could tell me the policies they back. Nothing specific. Every last one I asked, they said, well, the economy was better under Trump back then. I was like, well, no, it wasn't. He spent less, I said, no, he actually was supposed to be conservative, and the conservatives were mad because he spent trillions. Like, he actually has a more debt ratio than the Biden Harris administration. So it's like certain stuff was just not factually bearing out, but that means that his rhetoric works to where if he says something long enough, people just believe that it's true. So I said, well, let me see for myself, what are something that you probably could support or something that would make you feel like, so
you even gonna help the Trump voter.
I mean, I'm like, listen, again, I told you, I want you to be informed. So tell me. So the one thing I've found from looking at all of it, I want to say probably like 60 to 70% is based around immigrants and deportation of immigrants.
Really?
Yes, he ties everything back to immigrants. So the first point, his first policy is seal the border. That's like the first thing out top, seal the border. Second, carry out the largest deportation operation in American history. These are like the first things that you see. And then he say end inflation. And then he also ties inflation to immigrants.
Wow.
When we deport those immigrants, the inflation will go down. We have less people. You know, so and then he goes to make America the dominant energy producer because they really want to do the fracking. Like, but even if you try to do that, you wouldn't produce the same amount of oil as Saudi Arabia and Iraq and Iran and those places. You just wouldn't. And then he says again, we back to the immigrants stop outsourcing, right? So he said we're gonna stop outsourcing, and if we stop outsourcing, you send immigrants home, we'll have more American jobs. But the crazy thing is, there was a Republican farmer who made a video where he said, well, we kind of have to bring in, what did he call them? I want to say, right, was it
seasonal workers or migrant workers or farm hands or something?
Yeah,
like
but
that.
but it was like something like
B21, B2.
There you go, B2L1 workers
yeah.
or something.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
he
something
said,
like that.
he said
That's a special category for people who come in during harvesting season or growing season just to work for farms, and they go back to their home country.
Thank you for explaining that. So he said we want to hire Americans for these jobs. He said, but we can't. They don't want to do the job.
They don't want.
He said, so we have to hire these people to harvest. He said, so this false notion that we don't want American workers and this false notion that it's taking away American jobs. He said, I put it in the newspapers, I put it on social
Mhm.
media. He said, before we even go that route, he said, because we actually get penalized for having to hire those people. He
Mhm.
said, we have to pay a higher penalty for having to bring them in to do our harvesting. He said, so we would love to have Americans. He said, but a lot of times they don't, people are not taking those jobs. So I just wanted to make that point when it comes to talking about the outsourcing and taking American
Let
jobs.
me let me add, and I've been speak now. I haven't spoken to every farmer, but the farmers that I do know that do tap into that program. One farmer in Louisiana. Now, what we know about Louisiana, it's one of the poorest states in the union. People get paid horribly, for what it is that they do. This sugarcane farmer pays the hands that he $20 an hour, and they get housing.
Yeah,
All right. And he said, I offer this to folk from Louisiana. They don't
they
want to
didn't
do
want
it.
to do it.
They say, oh, the work is too hard for $20 an hour, so and that now I'm not saying, because I was there in 107-degree weather last year on them cane fields, but this is right. People do not want to do the work, but also people are just not skilled,
Yeah,
like that,
that's the other
right?
thing. Yeah,
In the age of social media, in the age of where all this smart technology, it has made people, their skills, it has dumbed, I'll just say, us down as a collective, because we all have things.
right.
I knew LA roads in the back of my hand, because when I became a journalist, my father gave me a Thomas guide. For all you old school
Yep,
people who don't know what a Thomas guide is a book. And my father, who was a truck driver, had me study it and tested me, because he was like, when you going into the hills and Hollywood Hills, or you need to know how to get in and get out, or when you in,
yep,
because if you're from LA, LA is not all surf and sun. Everybody's not progressive and smoothie drinking. It's a whole bunch of like sadistic racist people. You need to know the
right,
streets.
right.
So, even I rely on GPS, which is, can be horribly wrong. So that's a really good point about Trump's platform. I'm sorry, I know I'm all up in the talk
No,
today.
no, no, no. That's what it got to be though, because I agree with you, right? And then he talked about he's going to do large tax cuts for the workers, but that's what he said last time, and his tax cuts went to the 1%, and we the ones who had actually got higher taxes, and people can look that up, like analysis of the 2016 tax cuts. Y'all go look up the analysis of the 2016 tax cuts, and you'll see who would benefit. It was called the middle class tax cut, but it did not help the middle class. Then it was just defend our constitution. What? I don't even know what that means. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and he said prevent World War III by building an iron dome over America.
Which is what Israel has in, okay.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
we'll be working with Israel, which,
right.
right? Mm-hmm.
And then he said stop the migrant crime epidemic. Back to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
He made immigrants the boogeyman and everything, basically, in this demolish drug cartels, because what is that going back to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rebuilding our cities, which is funny because he didn't do anything for infrastructure when he was president last time, and they had to fight him for every little bit. And then Biden and Harris came in and actually did the big infrastructure bill. So he strengthened our military, cut spending, keep the dollar as the world's reserve currency, but he can't do that. He doesn't make that choice. That's not made by America. That choice isn't made by America.
Well, the dollar survived up to petrol. That died already. Next.
Yeah. So he said fight for Social Security with no cuts, which we know is a lie because we already know the Republicans said they want to cut Social Security and raise the Social Security age. Cancel the electric vehicle mandate. I'm not mad at that, because they're trying to make it where you have to buy an electrical car in the next five
Which are
years or something like
trash.
that.
EV vehicles
Yeah,
are trash. I got
yeah,
stuck in the country for 8 hours with the EV
yeah,
vehicle. But though,
yeah.
don't ever rent an electric vehicle and you go into the country, y'all. You will be asked
Yeah.
out. Okay.
So so I'm not mad at that because there's a lot of work to do before you can say everybody has to have an electric
Electric
vehicle.
vehicle. And it's not going to be by 2025. What is it? 2030. It's not. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Cut funding for any school teaching critical race theory, gender ideology, racial ideology, but we want to teach intelligent design. So that's something that's going to affect our kids because basically they're saying anything that's Black history or that makes white people look bad, they're gonna try to get rid of it. This is actually in his platform too. Keep men out of women's sports. Uh, deport pro-Hamas radicals and make our colleges safe and patriotic again. Secure the election. He only wants same-day voting on paper.
Yeah, they're trying to do that in this election. They really are trying to reduce the
Yeah,
early
he don't want.
voting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he don't want early voting in Maryland because that doesn't benefit Republicans.
Mhm.
And the final point was unite our country by bringing it to new and record levels of success. So what I
I'm
realized,
surprised it wasn't in grab them by the, you know, what I'm saying?
right, what I'm realizing is a lot of his stuff is kind of broad, like the way he is, the way he talks. It's not a lot of specifics, right?
Well,
There's
he
not a
didn't
lot of.
even write that. Let's keep it a buck. He didn't write
Well,
that.
yeah,
I'm
that's
listening.
true.
Yeah.
That's true. He didn't write, but I'm saying even this is not very specific. It's very like the way he talks. Make America great again. Make America safe again. Make it's like I don't know. It's almost like his rally points.
Right.
Because I was like, I wanted to read to see if there was specific, like, okay, you say you want to stop inflation. Okay, let's see what are your specific points of how you're gonna bring that. But there's none of that. So it's like a lot of fluff. It's a whole lot of fluff and not a lot of substance when reading the platform for me.
Right. No, I mean, listening to what it is when I went over Cornel West's platform, because I like to keep, Cornel West is
Yeah.
an independent candidate. What he said was very generic. It was very general. And for me, it is a slap in the face to dumb down any voter. And I think what this does is that it thinks that the average voter that's going to vote for Trump doesn't have the critical thinking skills, in order to understand a platform that has texture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's presented in a way that has just more complexity. So yeah, but because in general, presidential elections, as we said, have become more of these personalities in terms of rather than platforms. And
Yeah.
it's low on policy. It lacks meat, totally lacks meat and teeth. It has absolutely it's daft. It's
Yeah.
very pasty.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up the Trump, because when we talk, I think it'd be really good to talk about, both sides. I think hopefully in the next one, I could veer in and see what other candidates are doing who are not on the major ticket. I always like to
Yeah. Yeah, for
entertain
sure.
that. All right, so the DNC is coming up. This is my last question. The DNC is coming up in a couple of weeks. What do you think we're going to see?
I think they're gonna try to make her look like a rock star at the DNC.
Is that good?
It depends on if they pull it off. Like if they can get like Beyonce to come out and sing the Freedom song for real, like stuff like that.
I'm sorry.
I know, but
wait, no, okay. Anyway, I'll just let Arc Republic's reporting show exactly why I did that.
but you understand what I'm saying? Like one thing about the DNC when Barack was there, they made him look like a rock star.
I don't think that's going to work. I think Barack was a one of a kind. When Harris ran beginning, they were trying to take the Obama template and
right.
the female version. It's
Well,
not
I don't think
work.
I don't think she's that, and I don't think it's good. I don't think it should be that. Right. When I say make her look like a rock star, I think it needs to be her version of that, not what they did with Obama. I think it needs to be her version of that, right? Like all
but
the
I think Michelle Obama took that whole use Beyonce thing. Like that's
well, no, because it was a big deal. Like when it dropped that she used it, and not only that she used it, that Beyonce actually gave her permission to use it. It was like news, and like the Beehive was all over it.
Well, who made it news? Come on,
social media.
Social media made it. Well, and then who put it on? Like a lot of this is manufactured. I don't know anybody that ran up to me and said Beyonce with the Freedom song. Like, nah, that ain't my. But okay, and hey, look, I'm in my little neck of the. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
In the woods of wherever I am. But I don't think that when I saw it, I was like, oh, okay, well, I wonder how they're going to explain how, Jay-Z got dinged for working with these conservative right-wing voters, giving all this voucher money in Philly. That's gonna be interesting. But anyway, that was a side note.
Yeah. So, but I think like that, Charlie, what's her name? Charlie XCS or something. She was like using Kamala for her, like basically he was helping promote her album too, but she, she utilized the press from that to help with her campaign as well. So I think there's things, excuse me, there's things that she's doing that's making her feel and look relevant to the younger voters, and she has to bring that to the convention. That's what I mean. She needs to figure out how to bring those moves that are working on social media. She needs to figure out how to bring that to the convention to keep those young voters engaged. And then also when she does her speech, she needs to talk to the adults in the room and give them and ease their fears or pains about whatever issues they had with her. That's going to be the biggest thing. She has to ease whatever uncomfortable things people have about her. She has to do her best to lean into that and figure out what that is.
I would say this is my thing. Harris must move from just being called Kamala to President Harris. Like, she can't be. I think it's disrespectful that Biden calls Harris by her first name, and that we all call her by her first name instead of just saying Harris. When we say Biden, we don't say Joe. You know what I mean? That is, I know in our community, that's not a sign of respect. When you,
well, that's why I've been trying to start saying VP Harris. That's why
VP, I've been exactly. She has to effectively move out of the homegirl space or the accessible candidate space. Like, instead of saying white woman for Kamala, there need to be white woman for, Harris.
Yeah, I agree.
So, and that, in my opinion, especially if you want to entertain like a younger, like the 18 to 34 demographic and really get them to vote, what they don't like, and this is as a college professor, what they don't like is that when you disrespect or downplay their attempt to intellectually engage.
Absolutely.
So you have to have a balance of being, I understand kind of like, the younger culture that's going on today, because it's very hybridized. I think it was easier when we were, because it was so still segmented.
Yeah, very binary.
Right.
Too.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But you've got to say, okay, I understand. But at the same time, I want to engage you seriously. There needs to be, I think, a little bit more of a balance. I don't want to see no goddamn Cardi B. I don't want to see no goddamn, no shade.
No.
Like people were talking about Amber Rose. Amber Rose was only the response to a Cardi B in the Biden election, right? And honestly, I think it was a month, but we don't want to see any of that. No. We want to see people who are a little bit more engaged. By the way, Cardi B ain't even put no album out. But anyway, so but you see Beyonce gonna hop on that thing, and that's my cultural critique. So so I'm not saying don't have Beyonce there.
But you have to have it, but you also have to have the substance. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you can do all the bright lights and bring the stars out, but then, like I said, you have to speak to what America is uncomfortable about with you. You have to speak to your critiques and your criticisms. You have to speak to your strengths and give a great charismatic speech like she's been doing. You got to carry that into the convention, but go like all the way big.
Yeah. I mean, and with that balance, and I know this is my last thing, because we're going to be talking about this for a minute. It also must be a balance of what you were talking about, the rock star with the grassroots, you know what I'm saying? Or the pop, you know what I'm saying? The commercial rap with the underground rap, you know what I'm saying? You
absolutely
got to have like this, you got to have this more nuanced campaign that you can claim as totally your own. It can't be a facsimile of anybody else, because you are such a unique candidate. You coming in 100+ days in, you are a woman of, I like how Cherie said this, a woman of color of African and South Asian descent. You are coming in a post-pandemic. The money system has changed. Culture around the world has changed. There's a lot that you must uniquely be your own, and it must be very savvy.
100%.
Yeah. So
she really got to thread the needle on this thing.
Yes, and you can donate to Arc Republic for this political consultation that we just gave you, VP Harris.
Right.
And Trump, god dang it, because you need it. Last thoughts are to you, Dame.
Like I said, this race is going to be much more interesting than it was when it was Biden versus Trump. I think the enthusiasm from the Democratic Party has been increased. I think she's finally kind of bringing the Democrat Party together, because during the whole Biden campaign, it was really fractured. It was really apart, and I think they finally got somebody that they feel like they can all get behind. I'm hoping she picks Shapiro for her vice president, because I just want to see him kick JD Vance ass all over the place, because he's such a dynamic speaker, and he's got that youthful, for a politician, youthful energy, you know what I mean? And he has good policy as well. So we'll
And
just
he's in a swing state.
in a swing state, and he can help win Pennsylvania. So I just want to tell everybody again, let's get educated, let's learn about both candidates, let's see what's going on. Let's make the right decision for us and our future.
All right. And let's stay together, or at least try and come together, whatever the outcome shall be. Thank you so much. You are listening to Arc Republic News. Dame Crawford of Uncouth Radio. We'll talk to you later.